All right, welcome back. You're watching TV 47 News tonight. Keep talking to us. 22047 is our SMS line. You can also find us on social media at TV47 Kenya on Facebook, as well as at TV47K on Twitter. The hashtag to use is TV47 News tonight. Now, on the 24th of August this year, Algeria's Foreign Minister Ramtan Al-Mamra announced that his country had broken off diplomatic ties with the neighboring Morocco, marking a serious fallback in diplomatic relations between the two Maghreb countries. The move comes after months of escalating tensions. So what caused it and what is it likely to mean? Joining me to discuss this and more, including the Kenya-Morocco ties, is the Moroccan ambassador to Kenya, Dr. Moktar Ghambou. Welcome to the broadcast, Dr.
Thank you very much, Asante Sana, for inviting me this exciting evening to and giving me this exciting opportunity to share my thoughts with the lovely people of the great Republic of Kenya.
Definitely. Now, to start us off, Bon Ambassador, is the regional politics in terms of the Maghreb region. Morocco and Algeria have had a long and very rich history. Now, what has caused the latest, of course, diplomatic row between the two countries?
Well, there are two sides to the story. There is, of course, the version that the Algerian government is giving us, the allegations that we believe that they are absurd, and there are the real reasons, according to our perspective of looking at, you said, as the rich history between Algeria and Morocco. So, but let me tell you that this is a unilateral decision. This is very important. And then, in the sense that, as you mentioned, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Algeria announced just unexpectedly, suddenly, that they are cutting off the diplomatic relations with Morocco. People on both sides, on both sides of the border, were extremely disappointed. Right. Why? Because there is a rich history between the two peoples, cultural, historical, linguistic, religious, that can never be reduced to a political decision. And the reaction of our ministry, as they said, the regret, they used the term regret, that this unilateral decision, which is unjustified according to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And but there is one important thing in the communique by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is that it says that regardless of what happened, regardless of this unilateral decision, Morocco remains credible and loyal partner for the Algerian people. This is very important. So why? This is important because usually, classically, sometimes when something happens of this kind, you just reciprocate. In this case, Morocco did not reciprocate. This is not the first time that actually the Algerian government, and sometimes we make a distinction between the government and the people. This is not the first time that they are trying to provoke. I remember I was a schoolboy when hundreds of thousands of Moroccans in Algeria, living in Algeria, were just deported from Algeria for, at that time, I don't know what was the reason. And you can see so many families actually sort of leaving behind their kids or wife, and if this is a mixed marriage, then wife has to leave or the husband has to leave. It was really a tragedy. But we didn't reciprocate. The Algerians in Morocco stayed, living in all the dignity that was needed. So this is the problem. But what are the allegations? According to the statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Algeria, number one, the wildfires that Morocco and Israel, also added there, conspired against Algeria to be the cause for those wildfires. And the surprising is that I am a permanent representative of UNEP, of Morocco to UNEP. So is my Algerian colleague. And we received reports about 2-3 months ago warning about this outbreak of wildfires in the Mediterranean region, like what happened in Turkey, Spain, Greece, and other countries. So why should it be a criminal act in the Algerian context? So this is absurd. The second thing, the communique also mentions Morocco and Israel trying to do something against Algeria. And this is also, it cannot be, it's not a convincing argument. Why? Number one, Morocco is not the only country which reestablished relations with Israel. There are many other Arab countries like Egypt, Jordan, Bahrain, the Emirates, and Sudan. So why should it be all of a sudden Morocco should be singled out as being problematic? Of course, recognizing or reestablishing the relations with Israel is a sovereign decision that should not be discussed in the first place.
Ambassador, allow me to interrupt you. We'll get back to your relations with Israel, but
no, this is an allegation.
Exactly.
That's why I mentioned it.
Exactly. We'll get back to that in a moment. But the diplomatic standoff between Algeria and Morocco dates back to 1963 during the Sand War. And of course, in terms of the scramble for, rather, let me use that word, scramble for Western Sahara. Now, there has been plans brokered by the UN to have a referendum so that Western Sahara can be independent. That has never happened. Why has this happened?
Well, since you mentioned 1963, at that time, Morocco was the first country to really put a demand at the UN asking to get back the Saharan regions, right? Nobody at that time didn't know. And the paradox is that we had the support of Algeria at that time. So the sand wars was something else. Why? Because since you mentioned that period of history going back to the 1960s, is Morocco actually, Moroccan people took a major part or played a major role in the revolution, Algerian revolution. And then even de Gaulle at that time asked Morocco, why don't you come and negotiate with us to get back your territory? Because when Algeria was considered a French department, which means that it tried to really annex so many territories from the neighboring countries, Chad, Tunisia, Morocco. Morocco refused. The late King Mohammed V refused, saying, if we have to do any negotiations, it would be with our brothers Algerians after independence. But Algerian government did not honor that, as if it was like that. They completely kept things as they were. Okay, and then comes the 1975, and this issue of the Sahara started then for Algeria. But let me tell you, from a Moroccan perspective, when we talk about Western Sahara, the real thing is that this is a problem, this is an issue about separatism. Why? Because Algeria supported, like Polisario, separatists, gave them shelter, or what they call refugees, in southern Algeria. And of course, that's provocative. So in that time, okay. And then comes the question of referendum. Since you mentioned referendum, actually it happened here in Nairobi in 1981. Late King Hassan II came here to Nairobi, and he said, he even wrote a letter to late President Arab Moi, saying that we are going to go with the referendum. Why? Because we want to avoid any divisions and tensions within the African Union, or Africa in general. So, and we have that, the archive of that. But once we started actually making that engagement, working on the process of referendum with the UN, Algeria at that time, they did not wait, 1981, 1982, they did not wait until that process of referendum is established. They started actually lobbying with African countries, especially at that time, Libya, Gaddafi's Libya, and Algeria, they were pro-Soviet at that time, really as if they were not happy with the fact that Morocco finally accepts to do a referendum. Even if that referendum was an insult to the Sahrawis in Morocco. Because you can't question the identity, the social identity, the attachment, the deep attachment between the Sahrawis and the mother country. So they started lobbying because the main reason was to overthrow the monarchy of Morocco, considered at that time pro-America and pro-capitalist, or pro-imperialist. These are the terms of that Cold War ideology. So then, after that, what happened is that you can add also a cultural thing. I mean, I was working on nomadism a lot. If you look at that area, historically speaking, especially in the 1950s and 60s, most of the people would come to the Sahara South, and then they would go to the north of Morocco, south and north of Morocco, which means they didn't have a fixed residence. How can you establish the list who is going to vote and who is not going to vote? Right, after that, the UN itself became convinced, because of the logistics that they were so complicated, they said, okay, let's find a political solution to the issue of the Sahara. Morocco right away came up with the plan for autonomy of the Sahara and the Moroccan sovereignty. And then little by little its language was adopted. Even if you look at the last resolutions from the UN, they look at that plan as credible and realistic solution to the conflict.
Definitely, fair enough, Ambassador. In December 2020, former US President Donald Trump recognized Morocco's claim to Western Sahara, and that caused what you are calling the strife between Morocco and, of course, Algeria, in terms of you recognizing Israel as a state. Now, of course, that brought these whole new, or rather took these to a whole new level. How has that affected your relations with other African or rather Middle East, either Arabs in the Middle East as well as in Africa?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, some people believe that this is a deal, right? And because they don't know the background, the historical background between the United States and Morocco. But I would say, even if I argue, if I use that term, it's a deal, or it's a trading this with that, I think there is nothing more sacred than one's territorial integrity. So if you make a deal in order to defend your territorial integrity, it's an acceptable one. We sacrifice lives to defend our integrity, territorial integrity. So why all of a sudden people are all of a sudden shocked that there is a deal or no deal? Two, this came in a context, and there's always a context, a political context to things that are happening, because America, in fact, people believe that it just changed its policy. It did not change. This is a continuation of the US administration, especially since 2007, when we presented that plan of autonomy, when they agreed the last resolutions, like 5-6 years ago, they just stated that language. We need to find a peaceful solution to the question of Sahara, right? Which means that Trump's administration just took a step further. Meaning now let's recognize the sovereignty of Morocco over the Sahara, right? That upset, of course, Algeria. Why? Because, as you know, America is a major power. And as Jeune Afrique said, they said that actually it's really made Algeria very uncomfortable, even if they shouldn't be, because we are trying to find a solution to the issue. But for other, as you say, Arab countries or African countries, if you're talking about that kind of move, of course it was welcomed by everybody. And Kenya as an ally of the United States, so there is no reason why not to actually think about it seriously. And the other thing that Algerian government was hoping to happen is Biden administration to reverse Trump's decision. But it didn't happen, it continued. Why? Morocco and the United States have a deep relationship. You know that Morocco was the first country to recognize the independence of the United States in 1777, right? Sure. After that, all the administrations signed strategic alliance with Morocco, whether it's Bush or whether it's Clinton, and whether it's recently with Trump. And we continue to do that, actually. And then we also signed a free trade agreement in 2006 with the US. So you see the privileged relationship. And of course, Kenya is going to be the second.
All right. Fair enough, Ambassador. It is 49 minutes past the hour, and it is time to take our third commercial break, but we'll be back with more. When we come back, we'll be talking about the ambassador's mission in Kenya. Don't go too far.
Ability is common in everyone. Those abled differently also have immense ability.
Maybe we are not good in both, but we can be good in life.
They reach beyond the limits in their special, different way.
If the society can just be careful on what they call them and how they refer to them, that would at least be better.
They need to be loved. They have feelings. They would like to give love. It's a natural thing.
Catch their story on Beyond the Limit on TV 47 every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
The brain does not exactly know how to differentiate physical pain from the psychological.
Nilikuwa na feel nimefeel hata watoi wangu.
This month, our sisters, mothers and friends share their heartfelt stories of the pain and struggles with Joy Irongo.
We are all about being authentic and sharing our lifetime experiences to speak hope and empower a woman who's probably going through a rough patch.
Join us as we unravel the heartache.
The doctor told me she has only 2 weeks to live.
Mimi nilikaa tu miezi 2 tu nikiwa na furaha kwa ndoa.
Every Saturday at 8:30 p.m.
Are you looking to buy a home? Or are you looking, is your home of real estate development information? Whether you are looking to invest in the city or outside the city, we link you with the experts in the field, be it designing.
We have also a very nice lighting and then gypsum decoration on the top of the ceiling.
Roofing.
When you involve a professional in your construction, there is a difference. Project that has been delivered by a professional person and a project that has not been delivered by a professional person.
Interiors.
We are trying to go is for a mix of European and Middle Eastern look.
Everything all under one roof. Join us every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m.
Any waste stream in our society can be turned into a revenue stream. Basically, turning lemons to lemonade. It could be a restaurant, animation industry, artistry, or even fitness. Just like the sweet and sour taste of lemons, businesses have their highs and their lows. Join me, Violet Njoki, on the grind as business entrepreneurs tell us the tales of their business every Monday at 7:30 p.m.
Our version of Kilimo Diaries is different.
Welcome back. You're watching TV 47 News tonight, and before we took that commercial break, we were talking about the Maghreb and the diplomatic strife between Morocco and their neighbors Algeria. And in studio with me is the Moroccan ambassador to Kenya, Dr. Moktar Ghambou. Ambassador, before we took that break, we were talking about matters Israel and Morocco. How has that newly found relationship? I know that relationship was existing before,
yes,
but how does that benefit you in Morocco and of course in Israel?
Yes, let me, I'm sorry, I just forgot one major point regarding the referendum, if you allow me to. Actually, I slept late because I was watching the elections last night. Yesterday there were elections in Morocco for the parliament, for the regional council, and also for the city council. So just an idea. You know, the highest rate of participation in the elections was in the Sahara, up to 70% compared to all the other regions of Morocco. What does that tell you? It tells you that actually the referendum is obsolete. It's even absurd, because if there was something, colonial times, people, when there were elections in Senegal or in West Africa, for example, by the French, they were boycotted, nobody participated. For people sometimes who accuse us this is colonial in that kind of context. But the Sahrawis expressed their voice, and for us, the problem of referendum or no referendum is solved. The problem of the Sahara is on the paper. It's not on the ground. And I always invite high delegations from Kenya to go and check for themselves. So now, Israel, the relationship between, this is not actually establishing, re-establishing the relations, because we had relations before in the 1990s. But at that time, Algeria, I don't know why they didn't react to that. So that's an important point here too. There is a deep historical relationship between the Israel, Jewish Jewish community in Israel and Morocco. People maybe that do not know that 1 million Moroccan Jews live in Israel. That's huge. This is really in the diaspora. And we have at least 3-4 institutions dealing with the diaspora. We can't discriminate between the Moroccan community living in Europe and those living in Israel. Our constitution also added the dimension of recognizing the importance of the Hebrew Jewish legacy in Moroccan culture. So, and the most important point is that Morocco, when in the process of reestablishing relationship with Israel, Mahmoud Abbas the president of the Palestinian president was briefed about the process. What does that mean? It means that actually this process is never done at the expense of Palestinian rights. Why? And even the Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, in his last visit to Morocco, he actually restated that in the sense that there is no alternative to a two-state solution to the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, right? And now, reestablishing the relationship, it happened. We are allowing actually this Jewish Moroccan diaspora to participate, to go easily to Morocco, even if before 50, after 60,000, still, even if there were no diplomatic relations, they would go to the country. Two, why this community is attached to Morocco. You know, most of the people know the film Casablanca, right? And then the question to ask, why are these refugees, Jewish refugees in Casablanca, not elsewhere? Nobody asks this question, but we do. Why? Because Morocco, King Mohammed V was the only monarch or the only leader at that time to save Moroccan Jews from the Holocaust.
Fair enough.
Right? So they remember that moment. They remain attached. If you go to any household in Israel, you'll find Moroccan flags and the picture of His Majesty Mohammed VI.
Fair enough, Ambassador. We are running out of time, and I would be out of place if I had not talked about your relations with Kenya. Morocco is considering to invest in Kenya, especially in the fields of tourism, finance, and insurance. And of course, Morocco has grown to become one of the agricultural giants in Africa, despite being in the Sahel. How has that made it? How have you guys made it possible? And are you looking forward to replicate that here in Kenya?
Yeah, well, our relationship with Kenya is on the right path, right? And why I always say it's inspired by the historical friendship between late Jomo Kenyatta, the founder of Kenya, and late Hassan II, the King of Morocco. These are actually the leaders, the founders of the African unity. And I always refer to that example to really sort of see how I can revive that spirit. And why the opportunities, the economic opportunities of investment between Kenya and Morocco are incredible. It's because they are two complementary economies. They are not competing. They don't grow the same things. You have agriculture, which is great. We have fertilizers. You know, OCP, the Morocco OCP, is the largest producer of fertilizers in the world.
Right.
So you can imagine the kind of relationship that might happen. And it is happening. And agriculture, we believe that we are one of the leading countries in terms of agriculture, despite the challenges. When I talk, for example, I gave some speeches in different regions here in Kenya, and it struck me that there is a problem of water management. So they asked me this question, how come that half of Morocco is arid or semi-arid, and yet it's one of the leading countries? I said, well, we have the politics of dams. We have at least 300 dams in Morocco, huge ones. So, and these are the kind of experience that we would like to bring to Kenya. Tourism, of course, we are doing well in the sense that there are at least 14 million tourists go to Morocco every year. So what I want to say here is that we should do benchmarking between Kenya and Morocco, and it started through regional partnership, like Mombasa with Tangiers, and Kisumu with Marrakesh, and next time it's going to be Dakhla with Wajir.
Definitely. We have less than a minute, Ambassador, but before I let you go, in 2018, 15 Kenyan parliamentarians announced in Nairobi the creation of joint Moroccan-Kenyan parliamentary committee.
Yeah.
Has that yielded fruits as you conclude?
Yes, it has, and it has, of course, because there were visits, actually exchanging visits between here and Kenya. And we want to do, diplomacy for us is not just like government to government, it's also between institutions. And the parliament, since they express the voice of the people, I met so many of them, and I was a parliamentarian myself before